Hey guys, tonight we're taking a stroll through the shadowy, incense-scented streets of ancient Persia. Persepolis if you want to sound fancy, or just the place where people got really into baths, if you prefer your history with a dash of sarcasm. The sky is still indigo, stars barely blinking out, and already the city stirs. You're about to experience the waking rituals that kept one of history's greatest civilizations, not only powerful and sophisticated, but surprisingly fresh-smelling, for people without access to even a single bottle of 3-in-1 body wash. Let's set the scene. You trudge barefoot down cobbled streets, ducking past the occasional camel, careful not to step in yesterday's leftovers. The sound of splashing echoes from behind high walls, punctuated by laughter and the low hum of gossip. Across Persia's sprawling cities and towns, bathhouses, some little more than steamy brick sheds, others architectural marvels, stand ready to welcome both the dust-caked and the status-conscious. The air hangs heavy with wood smoke, baking bread, and the faint but ever-present hint of rosewater. You can practically feel the warmth rolling off the tile floors, and if you listen closely, you'll catch the timeless grumble of someone waiting for hot water. And here's your friendly reality check. However glorious it looks from a distance, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in a real Persian bathhouse. Between the scalding buckets, the bone-chilling drafts, and the social minefield of communal scrubbing, there's a reason ancient Persians took bathing seriously enough to make it a core part of daily life, and even a matter of personal pride. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, why not post your location and local time? I love seeing just how many time zones are tuning in for a good dose of boring history. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through the grand wooden doors of a Persian bathhouse, steam billowing around you and soft lamplight shimmering on glazed. The clatter of sandals and hushed conversation fills the air. For ancient Persians, bathing was not just a quick scrub before work. It was a ritual, sometimes hours long, involving hot and cold pools, vigorous massage and exfoliation, with woven mitts rough enough to make even the bravest modern spa-goer flinch. In the corner, an elderly man soaks in a marble tub, eyes closed in bliss, while a younger bather frantically tries to untangle his hair with a comb that's seen better centuries. Here's a mainstream historical fact. Archaeological finds and Persian texts reveal that these bathhouses weren't rare luxuries, but essential urban infrastructure. The Achaemenid kings ordered the construction of elaborate bath complexes wherever they built palaces. Persian law even set aside funds to maintain public baths and ensure every class could keep clean. That's right, cleanliness wasn't just for nobles. Everyone from priests to bakers was expected to show up scrubbed and polished, lest they offend the gods, or worse, their neighbours. As you slide onto a warm bench, the attendant hands you a dish of pungent soap, a blend of ashes, animal fat and herbs that manages to smell simultaneously earthy and suspiciously like last night's stew. You try not to laugh as the boy next to you makes a face, attempting to lather up without losing his dignity or his grip. Quirky tidbit, some bathhouses mixed soap with scented oils, while others went full DIY, letting bathers scrub with sand, clay, or even ground up date pits. It's exfoliation, ancient style, guaranteed to leave your skin raw enough to make you appreciate the gentler modern sponge. Nearby, two women argue over the best time to bathe, before dawn, or just before the midday heat. Their debate is serious business. In Persia, the timing of your bath said something about your social standing and sense of decorum. Did you bathe before prayers or after the market? Did you dare to skip a day? Historians still argue whether morning bathers were more virtuous or just early risers with cold feet. No one lingers in the hottest pool for too long, but the bravest might attempt a cold plunge to tighten the skin and show off their constitution. There's always one guy, there's always one who claims to love the icy water and inevitably emerges shivering, teeth chattering, declaring it's invigorating. As dawn fully breaks, you notice the subtle choreography of the bathhouse. A young boy dashes to fetch fresh water, an old woman lights more incense, and the ever-patient attendants pour bucket after bucket to keep the temperature just right. Finally, every detail, how you wash, where you sit, whom you talk to, is shaped by centuries of etiquette, custom, and more than a little friendly judgment. You glance down at your hands, now pruned and tinged with the faint aroma of myrrh and clay. Through the mist and laughter, it's clear, the Persian passion for bathing wasn't just about avoiding dirt. It was about harmony, community, and the belief that the body was a sacred vessel, worthy of care and ritual. As the crowd finishes up and the first rays of sun strike the tiled walls, you wrap yourself in a scratchy linen towel, savouring the rare sense of being both anonymous and connected, a tiny piece in a great, well-scrubbed tapestry. Stepping out from the steamy haze of the bathhouse, you're greeted by the spicy sweet perfume that clings to every Persian street corner, ancient soap, oils, and a truly bewildering collection of cleansing concoctions. Your skin still tingles from the morning scrub, but as you watch the bustle around you, you realize that getting clean is only half the challenge. The other half is smelling good enough that your friends don't pretend not to see you at the market. Ancient Persia, after all, is famous for many things. Its royal road, its dazzling palaces, its vast armies, and to the mild surprise of most modern folks, its relentless pursuit of pleasant aromas. Soap in Persia wasn't just a block of something to ward off grime. It was a badge of sophistication, a social currency, and at times a subtle act of rebellion against the great unwashed. Mainstream historical fact: early Persian soap was far ahead of its time. The Persians were among the first to develop soaps using plant oils, lime and ash. Olive oil and sesame oil soaps became beloved staples. Some formulas included fragrant resins, rosewater, and herbs like thyme, mint, or saffron, turning each wash into a tiny festival for the senses. Persian records and archaeological digs have revealed that by the height of the empire, soap making was a respected trade, and its products were traded far and wide. The best soap was often reserved for gifts to nobles, wedding dowries, or diplomatic offerings. Imagine winning over your enemy with a bar of something that smells like paradise and leaves your hand softer than a baby goat's ear. You trail a group of women carrying woven baskets through winding alleys. Their path ends at a stall piled high with fragrant yellow cakes and tiny glass jars of oil. Here, the soap maker works magic with her mortar and pestle, blending animal fat or vegetable oil with ashes, adding handfuls of herbs and sometimes a pinch of ground pomegranate peel or walnut shell for extra exfoliation. She offers you a sample. Warning: don't eat it, even if it does smell better than dinner. Quirky tidbit: some Persian soaps were famous for their odd, almost mystical qualities. One type would turn from hard cake to creamy foam with just a splash of water, no easy feat without modern chemistry. There was a prized black soap made with burnt fig and licorice root that promised not only to cleanse, but to ward off evil spirits. And for those who craved a challenge, soaps laced with salt or vinegar were advertised to purify even the laziest bather. Just don't get them in your eyes, or you'll be cursing in 3 languages. As you stroll past perfumeries, you catch the scent of rose attar drifting on the air. Perfumed oils are everywhere, worn on the wrists, massaged into hair, even dabbed on laundry for good luck. Persian gardens overflowed with the flowers that scented these oils. Frankincense, myrrh, saffron, and sandalwood were blended for the rich, while the less wealthy made do with local herbs, wild flowers, and, if they were desperate, a sprig of mint tucked behind the ear. The fragrance wasn't just about showing off. It was believed to ward off illness and keep one's soul in good spirits. Historians still argue whether these scents were strictly medicinal. entirely social, or a clever combination of both? Were you really protected from plague by rubbing your body in saffron oil, or just less likely to be shunned by your neighbours? Maybe both. The truth, as usual, lingers somewhere between health and habit. You find yourself in a bustling home, watching as a mother instructs her daughter in the art of layering scents, using one oil for hair, another for the body, a third for the feet, and so on. It's an aromatic ritual, repeated at sunrise and sunset, meant to lift the spirits and send the day's worries running. Even the family pets get a quick pat down with mint leaves or a dab of jasmine oil on their collar. Ancient Persian cats, it turns out, were as pampered as their owners. Fringe tidbit. There's a tale passed around the bazaars of a Persian merchant who became so obsessed with finding the perfect scent that he lost track of his camel for 3 days, only to discover it basking in a pile of spilled rose petals, possibly the best smelling camel in history, if not the most reliable. The lesson? In Persia, you could misplace your fortune, your shoes or your dignity, but never your soap or your bottle of perfume. You spend the afternoon surrounded by endless options. Tiny jars of sandalwood, clay pots of musk, bottles of ambergris oil, which, fun fact, is made from whale secretions, though no one ever likes to talk about it. Each scent has a purpose: to attract, to protect, to honor the gods, or just to cover up the results of a day spent under the Persian sun. As the sun dips low and the day cools, you realize that beneath the grandeur and glory, ancient Persia was a world stitched together by little luxuries. Every splash, every scrub, every cloud of scent was part of a greater philosophy, that the pursuit of cleanliness and beauty was both an art and a duty, a fragrant thread connecting one generation to the next, lingering long after the last whiff of myrrh has faded from the air. You find yourself wandering beyond the market stalls, away from the perfumed clouds and soap makers, toward the real engine of Persian cleanliness, water. In ancient Persia, access to fresh, flowing water was more than a luxury. It was a civic obsession, a symbol of prosperity, and if you believe the old poets, the mark of a truly civilized people. You step carefully along stone channels that snake through gardens and courtyards, hearing the gurgle of hidden rivers beneath your feet. This is the secret heart of hygiene, one that kept Persia thriving even when the desert sun blazed and the winds carried sand for miles. Mainstream historical fact: the Persians engineered some of the world's earliest and most sophisticated water systems. The Qanat network, underground aqueducts bored through earth and stone, brought fresh mountain water to cities, fields and palaces, hundreds of miles from its source. This ingenious feat made clean water accessible for bathing, drinking, cooking, and yes, a whole lot of laundry. Royal wells and cisterns were constructed in every town worth its salt, and there was a lot of salt. Just ask anyone who's washed their hands with Persian black soap. The greatest cities, Persepolis and Susa, pulsed with fountains and pools that seemed to defy the desert itself. You stop to rest beside a broad basin where a woman draws water for her family. She lowers a clay jug with the skill of a circus performer, never spilling a drop, and pours the cool, sweet liquid into a line of smaller jars. She smiles and waves you over. "Clean water, clean body, clean heart," she says. A phrase repeated across Persia, like a proverb, or perhaps a warning to anyone considering skipping their weekly bath. Fringe tidbit: it wasn't just about quantity, but quality. Some noble households filtered water through layers of charcoal, sand, or even pomegranate shells, claiming it improved both taste and health. You pass a courtyard where men pour water over piles of fragrant rose petals, a DIY purifier, and a kind of air freshener, all in one. In other quarters, water was left to sit in wide, shallow bowls overnight, the morning's dew believed to imbue it with magical cleansing powers. You try a sip and decide, at the very least, it's colder than anything else around. As you follow the flow of water deeper into the city, you notice just how much of daily life revolves around its careful management. Children carry pails from the communal well, laughing and splashing as they go. Bakers rinse their hands before kneading dough. Weavers soak fibers to soften them for intricate patterns. Priests purify themselves before temple rituals. The sound of flowing water is everywhere, a low, constant music that gives the city its rhythm. Historians still argue over just how widespread Qanat technology was, and who deserves credit for its invention. Some point to the Medes, others to even earlier Elamite engineers. What's certain is that without it, much of ancient Persia would have been little more than dust and dreams. The knowledge spread as far as Egypt, India, and beyond. Proof that when it comes to water, imitation really is the sincerest form of flattery. You visit the royal garden where waterworks become art. Slender rills channel streams into lily-filled pools, while elaborate fountains dance under the watchful gaze of stone lions. The air is cooler here, scented with mint and the sharp green tang of willow. A gardener invites you to help sweep the channels clear of debris, a daily chore that keeps everything flowing smoothly. A blocked channel, he warns, brings not just muddy water, but muddy fortunes. It's a superstition, but after struggling to unclog a stone grate with your bare hands, you can see his point. Quirky tidbit, in some villages there's a tradition that the first person to draw water on New Year's morning gains a year's worth of good luck and the right to tease their siblings for the next 12 months. Some folks swear by rainwater for the softest hair, while others go so far as to use melted snow for special ritual baths. If you've ever wondered who invented the original spa day, look no further than a Persian with a fresh jug of mountain runoff and a stubborn streak. Night falls, and lanterns reflect in rippling pools as the city prepares for sleep. You hear a final round of splashing and laughter as families finish their nightly washing. Even the cats are encouraged to drink from the cleanest basins. After all, in Persia, everyone's entitled to a bit of luxury. As you retreat to your own bedroll, the cool taste of fresh water lingers, a simple pleasure made possible by centuries of clever engineering, careful stewardship, and more than a little water worship. You realize as you drift towards sleep that Persian hygiene wasn't just about fighting grime. It was a philosophy, a belief that purity in water led to purity in life, and that even in a land of deserts, every drop could be made to count. As the sun edges higher and morning light glimmers off every mosaic tile and polished metal dish, you find yourself entering the private domain of Persian hair care and head. In a culture that prized order, beauty, and a touch of theatrical flair, your hair was much more than a means to keep your head warm. It was a living banner of health, identity, and if you played your cards right, social status that could outshine even the brightest lapis pendant. Mainstream historical fact, the Persians, especially during the Achaemenid era, cultivated a love affair with hair, but went well beyond a weekly comb-through. Men and women alike oiled, braided, and styled their locks with obsessive care. Hair was an emblem of personal pride, its grooming woven into religious rituals, military traditions, and court etiquette. Long beards and flowing hair for men, adorned with rings and bands, symbolized strength and nobility. Women's hair was equally celebrated, often grown long and then wound up in elaborate knots or left cascade over shoulders for festivals. You join a household in the midst of its daily preparations. There's an older man, his beard a magnificent black waterfall, sitting serenely as a young servant weaves tiny gold threads into his braids. Next to him, his wife works scented oils, rose, almond, or even rich sesame into her hair, letting the sun's warmth help the fragrance bloom. The children, meanwhile, squabble over a comb made from the shell of a sea turtle, each hoping to be first in line. A day begun with knots, their mother teases, ends in trouble, You get the sense she's only half joking. Quirky tidbit: some Persians believed that never cutting your hair could bring divine favour, while others insisted regular trims kept evil spirits from settling near your scalp. One popular custom involved braiding a red ribbon into a child's hair during the spring festival of Nowruz to ensure a year of good health and quick wits. And among the nobility, it wasn't uncommon to sleep in special linen caps, soaked in perfumed oils, said to keep hair glossy and dreams sweet, though you suspect it mostly kept oily hair off the pillows. The headwear game in Persia was just as elaborate. For men, the tiara, or kadaris, a sort of soft, pleated cap, or tall, floppy crown, was both a badge of office and a practical shield against the blazing sun. Soldiers wore tightly wrapped cloths, secured with bronze or silver pins, while workers preferred a simple band to keep sweat out of their eyes. Women's head coverings ranged from delicate veils studded with pearls to broad scarves dyed brilliant indigo, the fabrics shifting with the seasons and the whims of fashion. Historians still argue whether these trends were purely Persian inventions or the happy result of cultural cross-pollination. The empire's borders stretched wide, and everywhere foreign merchants and travellers brought new ideas in fabric, dye and style. Did the Medes invent the elaborate horsehair plume? Did Elamite women pioneer the art of the jewelled headband? The evidence is tangled, to say the least. In the palace, hair care was elevated to an art form. Dedicated attendants spent hours preparing royal locks for ceremonies, using combs carved from ivory, boar bristle brushes, and unguents stored in tiny alabaster jars. The king's beard, in particular, was a state treasure, often curled and starched with egg whites or scented wax. There's a joke among courtiers that a single tug on the royal beard could spark a war, if not a mild diplomatic incident. You try your own hand at these ancient beauty routines. The servant hands you a shell comb, guiding your fingers through the delicate process of untangling, oiling, and plaiting. The scent is dizzying, the feel of clean hair oddly soothing. Beauty requires patience, she says, and patience requires snacks. She presses a sweet date into your palm and grins. Fringe tidbit: not all was perfect in the world of Persian hair. Lice and other pests were constant, annoying companions. To combat these, Persians used fine-toothed combs and herbal rinses, wormwood, mint, and occasionally strong vinegar. Some remedies were more creative or desperate. Stories survive of merchants dyeing their beards with indigo to hide grey hairs or painting on beauty spots to distract from bald patches. There's even a legend of a poet whose beard turned green after he fell asleep under a willow, though most suspect the culprit was a poorly sealed jar of hair dye. By midday, you've seen how much of Persian hygiene revolved around care, creativity, and just a touch of vanity. Hair care wasn't just about keeping clean, it was about feeling prepared for whatever surprise the day or the gods might bring. Whether you wore your hair in shining braids or tucked beneath a floppy hat, you belonged to a society that found pride in the smallest details, celebrating each strand as a thread in the greater weave of Persian life. You step outside, hair still fragrant and fingers sticky with oil, and realize, in the grand bazaar of ancient Persia, a good hair day was a cause for celebration, and a bad one, well, best to blame it on the wind. The morning is in full swing as you shuffle your now glossy hair through the alleys, only to be greeted by a crowd of merchants munching sweet dates and loudly arguing about the best way to brush one's teeth. That's right, next up in the Persian hygiene playbook is dental care, an arena filled with so much sand, ash, and improvisational dentistry that even your modern toothbrush would break into a nervous sweat. Mainstream historical fact: ancient Persians took oral hygiene seriously enough to earn the praise of Greek and Roman chroniclers, who found Persian breath shockingly pleasant compared to some of their own citizens. The toolkit was both ingenious and, depending on your threshold for grit, mildly alarming. Persians used twigs from trees, like the Salvador persica, the toothbrush tree, still used in parts of the world today, as well as thin slivers of aromatic wood. They'd chew the ends until soft, fraying them into tiny brushes, perfect for scrubbing away last night's honeyed sweets. You watch as an old merchant, his beard sparkling with grey, plucks a twig from a bunch tied to his belt. He chews the end, dips it into a bowl of fine ash and fragrant herbs, often mint, sometimes crushed fennel or cardamom, and gets to work, teeth flashing in the sun. He hands you a twig, arching an eyebrow in challenge. You give it a go, and the sensation is unique. A bit like brushing with a very tiny broom, dipped in a strange salad. But after a few tentative strokes, your teeth do feel impressively clean and your breath miraculously tinged with mint. Quirky tidbit: tooth powder was the toothpaste of its day. In the wealthier homes, it was a mixture of powdered pumice, burnt eggshell, and even a little crushed pearl, if you wanted to dazzle your admirers. Ordinary folks made do with a simpler blend: salt, charcoal, dried rose petals, and ground-up date pits. Some people swore by rubbing their teeth with the soft inside of a fig branch, while others believed that a rinse of sour grape juice kept both teeth and gums in top form. Persian dental wisdom extended to the tongue as well. Tongue scrapers, delicate little metal tools, were used after meals, ensuring that no stray crumb or oniony aftertaste lingered. For children, it was a rite of passage to endure their first tooth cleaning from a grandparent whose gentle but insistent brushing left no molar unpolished.
And if you lost a tooth? There are charms for that too. Bury it in the garden for luck, or wrap it in a red cloth and toss it into the river, whispering a wish for strong, healthy teeth to grow in its place. Historians still argue whether the Persian devotion to clean mouths was born from medical insight or simple social etiquette.
Was it about keeping illness at bay, or avoiding the embarrassment of dragon breath during royal audiences? Probably a bit of both. The connection between oral health and overall well-being was recognized even then. Though nobody knew about bacteria, everyone knew the pain of a bad tooth, and a sparkling smile could open more doors than a royal signet ring.
You stroll the bustling market, noting stalls selling little jars of tooth salt and packets of dried mint leaves. Some enterprising vendors offer tooth-staining dyes in deep reds and blacks, favoured by warriors and poets alike. Proof that a little vanity found its way even into the bathroom. If your gums bled, there was a remedy for that too. Rinse with salted pomegranate peel, or chew a sliver of licorice root. For a toothache, a poultice of crushed garlic, onion and honey would be packed around the offending tooth, followed by a stern warning not to bite down until the pain faded or the poultice did.
Fringe tidbit: there are old jokes about Persian magicians who could charm a snake with a whistle, or charm a cavity with a song. Some believed in reciting short verses or prayers while cleaning to drive away the spirits of decay.
And if all else failed, a quick sip of strong wine or a nibble on raw clove was said to banish the worst breath, if not your memory of last night's dinner. Your adventure in ancient dental care wraps up as a gaggle of children gather round, each clutching their own twig or homemade scraper, practicing their technique on a shared pomegranate. You realise with a wry smile that even across the centuries, nothing unites people quite like the quest for fresh breath and the shared trauma of the family dentist. You leave the market with a mouth tingling from mint and ash, your appreciation for modern toothpaste and dental insurance at an all-time high. But you can't help admiring the cleverness and dedication of the Persians, who managed to keep their smiles bright and their breath bearable in a world before floss or fluoride, proving once again that good hygiene, much like history itself, is always a work in progress. You head down a lively boulevard, teeth feeling scrubbed within an inch of their lives, only to be swept up in a cloud of dazzling scents. This is the fragrant epicenter of ancient Persia, where aromatics and body perfumes weren't just a luxury, but a cultural imperative, and the line between smelling wonderful and conducting a minor chemical experiment was blurrier than the border between Median and Persian hat. Mainstream historical fact. Ancient Persia was renowned throughout the ancient world for its mastery of perfumes and aromatics. Their gardens overflowed with roses, lilies, jasmine, and narcissus, which were harvested at dawn and distilled into oils using clay alembics. Myrrh, frankincense, sandalwood, and saffron found their way into everything from sacred rituals to royal banquets, but nowhere were they more at home than on the bodies and clothing of the Persian people. You find yourself swept along by a small crowd into a shop stuffed with tiny vials and glazed jars. The perfumer, a woman whose robes are more colourful than a springtime orchard, waves a fan to scatter rosewater through the air. Her fingers are stained gold with saffron, and her smile is mischievous as she offers you a dab of amber oil for your wrists. The aroma is rich, smoky, and oddly comforting, like the memory of a festival that you're sure you've never attended. Quirky tidbit: Persian perfumes were sometimes so strong that visitors wrote about scented breezes trailing from palace doors for blocks. There was even a fashion for scented coins and perfumed ink. Imagine receiving a letter that still smells of lilies after weeks on the road. Some say the most luxurious baths ended with a drizzle of rosewater poured over the bather's head, or a cloud of sandalwood smoke wafted through the changing room. And for those who couldn't afford imported spices, a handful of dried mint or basil tucked into a belt or turban could serve as both cologne and bug repellent. You watch as the perfumer grinds dried flowers and spices, mixing them with oil and resin over a low flame. She explains that every family had its own signature blend, a secret recipe handed down from mother to daughter or father to son, adjusted for season, celebration, or scandal. Rich families kept their formulas guarded like a state secret. A perfumer who betrayed a family's scent could find herself blacklisted from the best parties, or worse, the monthly bathhouse gossip sessions. Historians still argue whether the perfume craze was practical, spiritual, or just good business. Certainly the air of the Persian court was as fragrant as it was political. Lavish gifts of oil, incense, and scented wine often sealed treaties or soothed old feuds. It's even said that a visiting Greek ambassador fainted after standing too close to King Darius's perfumed throne, though some suggest he just didn't pace himself on the honeyed wine. You notice the shop's apprentices filling tiny clay pots with paste made from rose petals and ground cinnamon, a combination used for everything from softening calloused hands to freshening breath. There are even perfumes to be worn on the soles of your feet, so that every step brings happiness. As the perfumer puts it, you try a little yourself, and your shoes squeak with every step, sending wafts of jasmine through the air, and making everyone within sniffing distance a little more cheerful. Fringe tidbit: there was a peculiar tradition at certain Persian festivals. Groups of friends would swap their signature scents for a day, just to confuse their rivals and test each other's sense of smell. The loser had to buy everyone a round of almond cakes and pay a forfeit by reciting a sappy poem about spring. Apparently nothing stings quite like being accused of smelling like your own mother-in-law. As afternoon fades, you realize how every corner of Persian life was touched by the love of fragrance. Soldiers carried sachets of mint in their armor for courage. Scholars burned myrrh to clear the mind before an exam. Newlyweds wore matching oils as a symbol of unity. Children learned early to mix perfumes from kitchen scraps and garden gleanings, creating clouds of scent that sometimes left even the most tolerant parents begging for a breeze. The final stop brings you to a temple, where priests waft incense through sunbeams, and the congregation breathes in as though drawing down blessings with every fragrant wisp. Whether sacred or social, medicinal or mischievous, aromatics were as essential to the Persians as bread, water, and a good story. You leave the shop, hands slick with oil, and heart lifted by laughter and the dizzy swirl of scent. The lesson lingers in ancient Persia. To be clean was to be fragrant, and to be fragrant was to be remembered, sometimes for a lifetime, sometimes just until the next street festival sent your signature blend sailing off into the starry night. After your aromatic adventure through the bustling market, you find yourself drawn toward the heart of Persian luxury, the royal baths. These are not just places for a quick rinse, they're architectural marvels, sanctuaries of both hygiene and hierarchy, and arenas where the politics of scrubbing could get more cutthroat than a royal council meeting. You feel a little thrill as you approach the palace walls, half expecting to be stopped for not having the correct sandal colour, but a kindly servant waves you through. Everyone is welcome to the bath, though not everyone gets the royal soap, he whispers with a wink. Mainstream historical fact. The Persian royal baths were legendary for their size, splendour, and innovations. These baths included heated floors, thanks to underground furnaces called hypercops, marble pools, and cleverly designed domed ceilings to capture steam and drip it gently back down. The king's bath might feature mosaics depicting lions or mythical creatures, the walls studded with polished lapis and gleaming gold. Private cubicles allowed the royal family privacy, but even so, bathing was often a social event, a place where politics mixed with perfumed steam. As you step inside, you're hit by a wave of heat and the soothing sound of trickling water. Attendants dressed in crisp linen bustle about, bringing trays of sweetmeats and cool drinks to the nobility soaking in steaming pools. The air is a dreamy blend of frankincense, sandalwood, and something suspiciously like freshly peeled oranges. You can't help but marvel at the sheer scale vaulted ceilings high above, steam swirling in lazy spirals, and sunlight filtering through tiny stained glass windows. Quirky tidbit, there are stories of kings who held court in the bathhouse, resolving disputes while perched on heated stone benches, their courtiers nervously clutching towels and trying not to drop important documents in the pools. One famous queen, it's whispered, orchestrated a coup by passing secret messages through scented soaps delivered to allies in the women's wing. If you wanted a favour from the royal family, showing up with the latest imported oil or a particularly fragrant rosewater cake could open doors faster than a signed royal decree. A palace attendant, sensing your curiosity, invites you to sample the different stages of the royal bath. First, a gentle scrub with mitts woven from goat hair, guaranteed to leave your skin red as a pomegranate, but softer than a cloud. Then, a rinse with water perfumed by marigold petals and saffron. You marvel at the smooth coordination of the attendants, who move with the precision of seasoned generals, ensuring each guest is washed, rinsed, and serenaded with polite small talk.
Historians still argue whether these elaborate bathing rituals were purely about hygiene or a means for the royalty to display their power and taste. Some suggest the baths were an extension of the throne room, a place to size up rivals, share secrets, and ensure that nobody had an advantage, at least not when it came to cleanliness.
Others point out that royal bathing was an important religious act, tied to Zoroastrian ideals of purity and order. You find yourself next to a group of royal children, giggling as they chase each other through a cloud of steam, leaving wet footprints on the polished floors. Their tutor supervises, explaining how even princes and princesses are taught to cleanse themselves properly, to honour the gods and respect their bodies. You try to copy their technique, but end up splashing water everywhere, earning a few bemused looks from the Queen's ladies-in-waiting. Fringe tidbit. Some say the royal bath had a secret pool, reserved only for the Shah and his closest confidantes, hidden behind a mosaic wall. Its waters were said to be cooled with snow, brought down from distant mountains, an impossible luxury that must have felt like bathing in the breath of the gods. On festival days, the pools glowed with floating lanterns, and guests sipped rose sherbet while musicians played softly in the background. To be invited to one of these midnight soaks was the ultimate mark of favour, or so the gossip goes. You linger, letting the heat and perfumed steam loosen muscles and worries alike. As the afternoon wanes, the palace's bathhouse slowly empties. Nobles don intricately embroidered robes and head for the banquet hall, faces glowing and hair gleaming with fragrant oil.
Even the lowest servant is allowed a quick soak before returning to work, a small gesture that keeps the palace running smoothly and everyone at least temporarily on their best behaviour. As you leave the royal bath, feet tingling and skin radiant, you're struck by the Persian belief that cleanliness truly was next to godliness.
In this world of marble and steam, every ritual, every scrub, every drop of rosewater was both a celebration of the senses and a careful step in the grand choreography of royal life. A choreography you're now just clean enough to appreciate. Refreshed and slightly dazed from your royal bathhouse adventure, you wander into the next phase of your Persian hygiene odyssey, the art, and sometimes agony, of shaving, plucking, and managing every stray hair with obsessive precision. In ancient Persia, grooming wasn't just a personal habit, it was a social expectation, a political statement, and at times a painful rite of passage that proved you were a civilized member of the empire.
Mainstream historical fact. Both Persian men and women were known for their meticulous grooming habits. Archaeological finds and ancient texts reveal tweezers, razors made of bronze or copper, tiny scissors, and even curious curved knives designed for the exacting task of beard and body hair maintenance.
For Persian men, a well-groomed beard was a sign of dignity, strength, and social rank. But it wasn't just about length, shape, curl, and even fragrance mattered. Some kings reportedly spent as much time on their beards as on royal decrees. Perhaps a reason the empire lasted so long, without anyone daring to mention split ends. You find yourself in a small, bustling barber's shop, where sunlight slants through carved screens, and the air is thick with the aroma of sandalwood and toasted sesame oil. The barber, a man with the steadiest hands you've ever seen, sits you down and examines your face with a kind of artistic scrutiny, as if considering a new marble statue. He offers you a choice: the warrior's shave, a quick tidy-up, the scholar's trim, neatly defined edges and thoughtful sideburns, or the noble's full treatment, an experience that includes a face massage and a cup of rosewater tea. Naturally, you opt for the noble route when in Persia, after all. First, your face is steamed with a hot cloth scented with mint and basil. Then the barber mixes a paste from almond oil and powdered lentils, spreading it across your cheeks and jaw. He sharpens his razor, a curved bronze blade, on a leather strop, the rhythmic scraping sound oddly soothing and slightly terrifying. With swift, expert strokes, he shaves away the stubble, pausing now and then to check his work or offer a wry comment about the wisdom of Persian poets and the foolishness of those who let their beards grow wild. Quirky tidbit: eyebrows were another Persian obsession. High, arched brows were prized, and both men and women plucked stray hairs with tiny tweezers made from polished copper. Some women painted their brows with coal or even darkened them with a mixture of walnut shell and vinegar.
There are records of Persian queens who kept eyebrow stylists on retainer and noblemen who commissioned poetry about the curves of their beloved's brows. For a special occasion, a woman might even adorn her brows with a dusting of crushed gold leaf.
Body hair was not ignored either.
Smooth skin was a symbol of youth and purity. Men often shaved their arms and torsos, while women used sugar paste or sticky tree resins to remove hair from their legs and underarms, a process that, judging by your own attempt, required more bravery than a battlefield charge.
For those less willing to endure pain, a mixture of milk and vinegar was said to discourage new growth, though results were probably more placebo than potion.
Historians still argue whether Persian grooming rituals were borrowed from earlier civilizations, Egyptian, Babylonian, or even Indian, or whether Persia refined and elevated these customs into high art.
Some sources suggest that the cult of the beard was partly a reaction to the clean-shaven Greeks, a form of cultural one-upmanship that involved a great deal more plucking and less philosophical debate. You watch as the barber demonstrates another staple, the scented beard oil, made from a blend of saffron, rose petals, and musk. It's massaged in, making even the most unruly facial hair gleam. If a man's beard or hair failed to impress, he might find himself the butt of jokes, or worse, overlooked for a prestigious post. In one famous story, a minor prince was denied a marriage alliance because his beard curled the wrong way, an epic tragedy by Persian standards.
When you stripped it, there was a playful superstition that if the barber nicked you while shaving, he owed you a free cake or a drink as children giggled about the first beard, a thin, scraggly line that boys flaunted like medals, and the family's first razor was often passed down for generations, accompanied by exaggerated stories of its magical sharpness.
There's even a poem about a boy whose unibrow was so mighty it frightened away his tutor and a few potential brides. By late morning, the shop fills with customers, some young, nervously awaiting their first shave, others seasoned patrons who gossip and debate politics while their beards are artfully shaped. The barber keeps up a running commentary, equal parts advice and good-natured teasing. A group of women drift in, veils lifted, for eyebrow trims and a quick chat about the latest court fashion. Spoiler, thicker is in this season. You leave the barber's chair with your face tingling and your dignity mostly intact, marveling at the elaborate, almost theatrical rituals that defined Persian self-care. In this world, grooming wasn't just maintenance. It was performance, connection, and pride. So next time you wield your razor, remember you're participating in an ancient tradition that's as much about artistry as it is about avoiding side-eye from your most fashionable neighbours.
The warm glow of afternoon settles over the city as you find yourself drawn toward the unsung hero of ancient Persian hygiene, the world of clean clothes. If you thought bathing and perfumes were impressive, wait until you see how much effort went into laundering, mending, and yes, even inventing some of the earliest underwear. It turns out Persia was not just a land of great warriors and scholars, but also a place where fashion and freshness marched hand in hand. Mainstream historical fact: Persian textiles were famed throughout the ancient world. Silk, linen, and wool were carefully woven into garments that ranged from simple tunics to embroidered robes fit for royalty. But no matter how fine the fabric, cleanliness was paramount. Laundry was a daily or near-daily ritual in Persian households, often conducted by women in communal washhouses or palace courtyards. Water, soap made from animal fats and ashes, and natural detergents like crushed soapwort were used to scrub and brighten clothes. These efforts weren't just for show. Clean garments were believed to maintain health and moral purity. You watch a group of women gathered by a wide basin, plunging fabric into soapy water and beating it rhythmically with wooden paddles. The air fills with the sharp scent of lemon, crushed herbs, and the unmistakable tang of wet wool. Nearby, a woman rinses freshly washed linen in a narrow channel of flowing water, then hangs the crisp sheets on tall wooden poles where they flap like white sails in the desert breeze. A child runs past clutching a bundle of colourful threads, a reminder that mending was just as important as washing. Quirky tidbit: did you know the Persians are often credited with inventing the first known form of underwear? Archaeologists have uncovered linen briefs designed to provide both modesty and comfort. These undergarments were prized for their breathability in the hot climate, and though not everyone owned a pair, those who did flaunted them as a mark of sophistication. Some even embroidered their underwear with tiny patterns or symbols for luck, proof that Persian fashion had you covered, quite literally from top to bottom. Laundry days were often communal festivals. Neighbours shared soap,
swapped gossip, and taught young girls the intricate dance of washing and drying without losing precious threads or colours. Men, meanwhile, sometimes took the opportunity to air their own finely woven robes, waving them like banners to catch the breeze and impress onlookers. The care given to clothing reflected not just personal pride, but a deep cultural belief in order and cleanliness as a path to divine favour. Historians still argue over the exact recipes for Persian detergents. Some texts mention crushing wild herbs like soapwort and combining them with lime or ashes. Others point to the use of animal-derived enzymes to break down stains, a practice astonishingly ahead of its time. What's clear is that cleanliness was an art as much as a chore, and the bright whites and vivid colours of Persian garments stood as a testament to centuries of experimentation and care. You pause to watch a master weaver repairing a torn cloak, threading golden yarns into the fabric with such precision it looks like magic. Repairing clothes was not just practical, it was a moral duty, a way of honouring the labour and beauty invested in each piece. There's a proverb that a torn garment is a torn spirit, and Persian households took the message seriously, often passing down treasured clothes for generations. Fringe tidbit: some stories tell of royal laundry days where palace servants competed to produce the brightest whites and most fragrant linens. The winning team might be rewarded with sweets or extra rest, though losing could mean a week of scrubbing palace floors, a fate almost worse than public embarrassment. There's even a legend of a mischievous courtier who dyed the king's robes pink as a prank, only to be banished temporarily to the bathhouse kitchens. As the sun dips low, you find yourself wrapped in the scent of lavender and mint from a freshly laundered shawl. You realize that in Persia, wearing clean clothes was not just about hygiene. It was a declaration of identity, respect, and connection to a grand tradition that stitched together family, community, and in the Grand Bazaar, you see merchants selling bundles of dyed wool, bolts of shimmering silk, and fragrant sachets meant for drawers and wardrobes. The colours and textures are dazzling, but it's the ritual of washing and caring for these treasures that truly brings them to life. You leave the market carrying a small packet of dried lavender. Its calming scent a reminder that the Persian pursuit of cleanliness was as much about nurturing the soul as it was about scrubbing away the dust of the day. And as you stroll home, you think, if your clothes are the armour you wear into the world, then the Persian laundry ritual was their forging, a careful, loving process that made every day a fresh start. The sun is climbing higher now, and with the warmth comes an inevitable truth. Everyone needs a place to, do their business. Ancient Persia, it turns out, was as concerned with toilets and waste as it was with perfumes and poetry. But as you'll soon discover, Persian toilets were far from the simple holes in the ground that you might imagine. They were carefully designed spaces, bound by etiquette, engineering, and some surprisingly sophisticated waste management systems. Mainstream historical fact: archaeological digs in sites like Persepolis and Pasargadae have revealed early examples of plumbing systems in toilet facilities that would impress even some modern cities. Persian toilets often consisted of small rooms with stone or wooden seats carved to fit comfortably, positioned over drainage channels connected to canals or open sewers. Waste was carried away by running water, sometimes filtered through gravel or vegetation to reduce odour and contamination. These innovations were crucial in densely populated urban centres and palace complexes. You step carefully through the tiled corridor of a noble household, noticing the discreet wooden door marked with an intricate carving of a pomegranate, a symbol of fertility and health. Inside, a cool breeze flows from a small window, carrying away any less pleasant odours. The seat itself is smooth limestone, warmed gently by the sun. Nearby, a basin filled with fresh water and a clean cloth stands ready for hygienic purposes. Yes, the Persians were among the first to practice early forms of washing, after using the toilet, a custom that was both practical and ritualistic. Quirky tidbit: in some Persian homes, toilets were even decorated with poetry or humorous inscriptions, little reminders to keep clean and remember one's manners. One such verse, roughly translated, advises the user to sit with grace and dignity, for even kings must heed the call of nature. There's a charming little joke about a prince who refused to use anything but the palace toilet and insisted on being carried there on a golden litter, a tale that still elicits giggles from local guides. Persian etiquette around toilet use was surprisingly formal. It was considered rude to discuss or even allude to such matters openly, and many wealthy families built their facilities away from public view, with multiple rooms to ensure privacy. In large bathhouses, shared latrines were common, but strict rules governed behaviour. No one was allowed to linger, and attendance ensured cleanliness was maintained throughout the day. Historians still argue how widespread these facilities were among the general population. While the elite enjoyed private, well-appointed toilets with running water, common folk likely used simpler pits or communal latrines. But even in rural areas, evidence suggests that attention to sanitation was greater than one might expect, with careful placement of waste pits and rudimentary drainage to protect wells and living spaces. You watch a servant deftly clean the toilet area, using a mixture of vinegar, crushed herbs, and water to disinfect and freshen. The air fills with a sharp, pleasant scent that makes you reconsider everything you thought about ancient sanitation. The servant chats about the toilet spirit, a kind of guardian believed to keep illness away from the household, provided the space was kept clean and offerings made during certain festivals. Fringe tidbit: some texts mention toilet angels, benevolent spirits who watched over these private spaces and punished those who disrespected hygiene. If a guest was careless or disrespectful, a family might whisper that the toilet angels were displeased, a subtle but effective social deterrent. There are even records of small charms or symbols placed near latrines, meant to encourage cleanliness and keep mischievous spirits at bay. As you finish your visit, you note the sophistication of waste removal in Persian cities. Wastewater was often channeled away from homes through underground tunnels, flowing into larger sewers or irrigation canals. This system not only improved hygiene, but also recycled water for agriculture, making Persia one of the earliest civilizations to practice a form of urban sustainability. You leave the chamber with a newfound respect for ancient Persian innovation and a quiet vow never to complain about modern plumbing again. The care and thought that went into these early toilets remind you that even the most basic human needs inspired ingenuity, social customs, and a surprisingly sophisticated blend of practicality and ritual. As you step back into the sunlit streets, you can't help but smile at the thought that the next time you sit down for a moment of privacy, you're following in the footsteps of kings, queens, and everyday Persians who took hygiene seriously, sometimes with a sense of humour, and always with a sense of dignity. Even as you step away from the practicalities of toilet design and urban sanitation, the notion of purity and cleanliness in ancient Persia takes on a far deeper, more spiritual meaning. Here, hygiene is as much about the soul as the body, intertwined with the sacred beliefs of Zoroastrianism, the dominant religion of the empire. You enter a realm where washing is not just for health or comfort, but a sacred act of cleansing the self from impurity, both physical and metaphysical. Mainstream historical fact: Zoroastrianism emphasized the concept of ritual purity and pollution, which governed many aspects of daily life, including hygiene practices. The faithful were required to cleanse themselves before prayers, before entering temples, and after contact with anything considered unclean, such as death or bodily fluids. Water, fire, and air were sacred elements believed to purify and maintain cosmic order, and Zoroastrian priests oversaw strict laws ensuring that impurities did not contaminate these forces. Public and private washing facilities were designed to facilitate these rites, making cleanliness a divine responsibility. You find yourself at the entrance to a fire temple, its walls glowing with the soft light of eternal flames. Outside, Zoroastrian priests dressed in white robes and tassels perform ablutions in pools fed by clean mountain water.
The air is filled with the scent of burning sandalwood and fresh herbs, each flame flicker symbolizing light and life. The priests wash their hands, faces, and feet in deliberate sequences, their chants weaving the sacred into every drop of water.
They explain that physical dirt is a reflection of spiritual impurity and that washing restores harmony with Ahura Mazda, the wise lord. Fringe tidbit. Some purification rituals involve the use of pushtana, fragrant linen cloths soaked in rosewater or myrrh, which were waved through the air or brushed over the body to dispel evil influences. There's an intriguing story of a priest who used powdered crushed pearls mixed with water to cleanse the temple floors, believing that the radiance of the pearls helped repel negative energies. It's unclear whether this was a practical cleaning method or a poetic metaphor, but in Persia, the line between science and spirituality was often beautifully blurred. You watch as a family approaches the temple, preparing for a purification ceremony. They pause before the water basin, washing their hands and feet with reverence, then sprinkle themselves lightly with water, murmuring prayers taught from childhood. Even children participate, learning that cleanliness honors not only the body, but the earth, the fire, and the spirits who watch over all living things. Historians still argue about how rigorously these purification laws were enforced across different regions and classes. While the priestly elite may have followed strict codes, some evidence suggests that in rural or frontier areas, customs were adapted or simplified. Yet the underlying principle that cleanliness is inseparable from holiness remained a powerful force shaping Persian culture for centuries. Your journey leads you to a quiet courtyard where the faithful prepare for the Nine, a ritual bath performed before major festivals. The bath is slow and deliberate, involving multiple stages of washing with fragrant oils, herbal scrubs, and cool water. Each act is accompanied by recitations from the Avesta, the sacred Zoroastrian texts, which emphasize the restoration of purity and the renewal of one's commitment to the cosmic order. Quirky tidbit. It's said that some priests kept tiny purity flutes, delicate reed instruments that they played during bathing rituals to chase away evil spirits through sound. There are also tales of specially trained purity dogs that could detect unclean objects or people, much like modern sniffer dogs, though this may be more myth than fact. Still, the stories capture the Persian imagination's mix of humor and reverence for the sacred. As the sun dips lower, you notice the meticulous care given to water itself. Rivers were guarded against pollution, and waste was carefully managed to keep waterways pure, a necessity for both hygiene and religious observance. Sacred fires, which were never allowed to go out, were tended with similar devotion, their flames symbolizing the eternal light of truth and purity. You leave the temple grounds with a renewed sense of how deeply intertwined hygiene and spirituality were in Persia. Cleansing was not just a practical act, but a sacred ritual, a daily reminder that the body and soul must be kept in balance. The Persians understood that washing away dirt was also washing away chaos, making space for order, light, and life. As you walk back through the bustling city streets, the last light of day casting long shadows over the stone, you carry with you the gentle wisdom of a culture that saw hygiene not just as cleanliness, but as holiness, a lesson as refreshing as the cool mountain waters that sustained it. The morning light spills into the bustling marketplace, where the scents of fresh herbs, spices, and roasted meats mingle with the murmur of haggling voices. Here, hygiene takes on a lively, practical dimension woven into the rhythms of daily life. Keeping food fresh, safe, and appealing wasn't just about taste, it was about survival.
In ancient Persia, marketplace hygiene was both a science and a dance, where merchants, buyers, and city officials played their parts to keep the empire fed and healthy. Mainstream historical fact: Persian markets were meticulously organized, with designated areas for different goods, meat, fish, vegetables, grains, and strict regulations to prevent contamination.
Water channels ran through parts of the bazaar, used for washing produce and rinsing utensils. Meat sellers often displayed their wares on raised platforms to avoid contact with dirt or pests. Authorities appointed inspectors who ensured that sellers adhered hygiene standards, penalizing those who sold spoiled goods or failed to maintain clean stalls. These early food safety measures contributed to the empire's impressive longevity and public health. You watch a butcher expertly slice cuts of lamb, his knives flashing in the sunlight, while his assistant sprays a mixture of vinegar and crushed herbs over the meat to deter flies and slow spoilage. Nearby, a vegetable vendor carefully rinses leafy greens in a basin of running water, while another seller wraps fresh bread in cloth to keep it from drying out. Children dart between stalls, their laughter mingling with the calls of merchants hawking fragrant spices. Quirky tidbit: some merchants used surprisingly inventive methods to keep their stalls clean and fresh. One fishmonger you encounter swears by spreading crushed mint leaves under his trays to mask the smell of the catch, a technique so effective that it attracted customers more than the fish itself. Another vendor offers smoke screens, small bundles of aromatic wood burned near produce to repel pests. There's also talk of market witches, women reputed to bless or curse stalls with rituals that ensured good business and protection from spoilage. The use of herbs and natural preservatives was common. Salt and vinegar were prized for their ability to extend the life of food, while dried spices like cinnamon, cumin, and coriander served dual roles as flavor enhancers and antimicrobial agents. You notice baskets of dried lavender and thyme hanging like fragrant chandeliers, their scents mixing with the buzz of activity. A woman sells jars of honey mixed with garlic and black pepper, a popular remedy for stomach ailments and a natural preservative. Historians still argue about how effective these ancient methods were at preventing foodborne illness. Some suggest that Persia's sophisticated storage techniques like underground cellars and cool water cisterns played a larger role, while others credit the widespread use of herbs and spices for masking spoilage and killing bacteria. Regardless, it's clear that hygiene in the market was taken seriously, with sellers and buyers alike understanding that cleanliness could mean the difference between health and sickness. You wander into a tea stall, where a merchant expertly brews infusions of rose petals, saffron, and mint, each cup promising both refreshment and medicinal benefit. Tea drinking, as you learn, was itself a ritual of cleanliness, a moment to cleanse the palate, soothe the stomach, and socialize. Customers sip their fragrant brews, sharing stories and advice about which herbs to use for coughs, fevers, or digestive troubles. Fringe tidbit: some market legends tell of a mysterious cleansing spice known only to a handful of families that could purify water and heal minor wounds. It was said to be so potent that thieves would avoid markets where it was sold for fear of being detected by its sharp, cleansing scent. Whether fact or folklore, the spice remains a tantalizing part of Persian market lore, sparking curiosity and debate among historians and herbalists alike. The afternoon brings a parade of city officials inspecting the stalls. Dressed in finely woven robes and carrying scales and ledgers, they check weights, cleanliness, and the quality of goods. Sellers smile nervously but nod in respect. This is a system that ensured fairness and public safety well before government health departments were a thing. You notice a small crowd gather as an official publicly fines a vendor selling spoiled dates. The vendor's protests drowned out by the cheers of customers relieved to know their food is safe. As the sun begins to dip, You find yourself sitting with a group of merchants, sharing sweetmeats and spiced tea, discussing the challenges of keeping food fresh in a hot climate. One vendor offers you a taste of preserved fig paste, while another boasts of drying techniques that keep herbs potent through the driest summers. The conversation is as much about survival as commerce, a reminder that hygiene and food were never separate matters in Persian life. You leave the market with your senses tingling, the scents, sights and sounds, a vivid testament to the importance of hygiene in daily Persian existence.
It's clear that the empire's success owed much to these practical rituals, where cleanliness and care kept both stomachs and communities healthy.
As twilight falls, you carry with you the lively spirit of the bazaar and the quiet wisdom that cleanliness, whether of body, clothes or food, is a thread woven deeply into the fabric of civilization. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the city as you make your way toward the clinics and healing houses scattered throughout ancient Persia. Here, hygiene takes on a life or death significance, as doctors and patients navigate a world where medicine blends empirical knowledge, ritual, and a heavy dose of guesswork. You step into a modest clinic, walls lined with scrolls and jars, and find yourself immersed in the fascinating, sometimes frustrating, world of ancient Persian medical cleanliness. Mainstream historical fact: Persian medicine was remarkably advanced for its time, blending knowledge inherited from Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek and Indian sources with original discoveries. Physicians, known as hakims, emphasized cleanliness in their practice, not just for patient comfort, but as a critical element in preventing infection. Surgical instruments were scalded in boiling water or treated with wine before use. Wounds were carefully cleaned with herbal concoctions, and doctors frequently washed their hands before and after examinations, a practice centuries ahead of many other cultures. You watch as a seasoned hakim carefully prepares a patient's wound, using linen cloths soaked in a mixture of rosewater and honey to gently clean the skin. His assistant sterilizes a set of bronze scalpels in a clay oven while reciting protective prayers. The patient, a farmer with a nasty gash on his arm, grimaces but remains still, trusting the healer's skill and the ritual's power. Nearby, another physician discusses the use of bandages infused with medicinal herbs such as chamomile and myrrh, designed to speed healing and reduce pain. Quirky tidbit: some Persian doctors were famous for their unusual remedies and hygiene rituals. There are stories of a hakim who insisted on washing his hands in goat's milk before every patient, believing it purified both his body and spirit. Others used animal dung as poultices. Certain types were thought to have antiseptic properties, though this might explain some of the more colourful infections reported. Some physicians also burned aromatic herbs to cleanse the air of bad vapours, a practice that echoes today's use of disinfectants and air purifiers. The clinic bustles with activity. Apprentices grind herbs into powders, patients recline on woven mats, waiting their turn, and the air hums with the scent of mint, cinnamon, and camphor. Hygiene extends beyond patients to the physicians themselves. Hakims often wore linen robes and turbans, both for status and cleanliness, changing garments regularly and bathing frequently to maintain purity. This attention to personal hygiene was seen as part of their professional responsibility. Historians still argue about how widespread antiseptic practices were, and to what extent Persian doctors understood the causes of infection. While there is clear evidence of hand washing and instrument cleaning, germ theory was centuries away. Much of what was done was based on observation, tradition, and a mix of religious and magical beliefs. Nevertheless, many patients recovered, and some surgical procedures, such as cataract removal, were remarkably successful. You watch as a young apprentice demonstrates the proper way to bandage a wound, carefully wrapping linen strips soaked in wine and herb extracts. The instructor nods approvingly but reminds the students that no remedy works without patience and proper rest. In another corner, a midwife cleans her tools meticulously before assisting with a childbirth, her hands steady and sure.
Fringe tidbit, some healing rituals included incantations for cleanliness, where the physician would whisper prayers or recite verses intended to drive away invisible contaminants.
There's even a legend of a healer who, after successfully treating a plague patient, claimed he was guided by a spirit that taught him the secrets of invisible purification. Perhaps an early nod to the idea of microbes, though more poetic than scientific. As twilight descends, you observe the subtle balance between medicine and ritual. Healing in Persia was not merely the application of herbs or the use of clean tools. It was a holistic process involving mind, body, and spirit. Patients were encouraged to maintain cleanliness in their homes, to eat balanced diets, and to follow prescribed baths and prayers. Physicians often recommended purifying the air with incense and maintaining personal hygiene to prevent illness. You leave the clinic with a sense of admiration for the Hakims, whose dedication and care set a foundation for modern medical hygiene. Their practices remind us that the path to health is paved not only with science, but with respect, ritual, and an unyielding commitment to cleanliness. As you step back into the cooling evening, the scents of herbs and burning incense still cling to your clothes. The legacy of ancient Persian medical hygiene, you realize, is a powerful testament to human ingenuity and the timeless quest to keep both body and soul well. As night descends over the Persian city, you find yourself drawn to a lesser-known but fiercely important aspect of hygiene: pest control. In a world before chemical sprays or electric zappers, the fight against lice, fleas, flies, and other tiny invaders was as crucial as any medical treatment. Ancient Persians faced these pests with a mix of ingenuity, ritual, and downright stubbornness, ensuring their homes, bodies, and clothes stayed as free from pests as possible. Mainstream historical fact: pest control was a recognized and vital part of Persian hygiene. Historical records and archaeological findings reveal that people used herbal fumigants, oils, and physical methods to repel or kill parasites. Mixtures of wormwood, cedar, and sulfur were burned in homes and stored rooms, while aromatic oils such as lavender and eucalyptus were applied to skin and hair. Clothes and bedding were regularly aired and washed, and regular combing with fine-toothed combs helped keep lice populations down. You watch as a woman carefully burns a bundle of dried wormwood near a sleeping child, the pungent smoke curling upward in ghostly spirals. She explains that the smoke is believed not only to drive away insects, but also to purify the air, preventing disease. Nearby, a merchant sells small sachets of crushed mint and marigold flowers, prized for their bug-repellent properties. These sachets are hung near doorways or tucked under pillows, a fragrant barrier against nighttime invaders. Quirky tidbit: some Persian families swore by bathing their children in mixtures of vinegar and water to repel lice, a practice that sounds more like a vinegar-soaked wrestling match than a soothing bath. Others used fine-toothed bronze combs to physically remove parasites, combing for hours with patience and care. There are even records of a lice lottery, a communal event where children's hair was inspected and the owner of the most lice was humorously crowned king or queen of the vermin for a day, a way to make the unpleasant task more bearable. Beyond the home, pest control extended to the marketplace and food storage. Grain bins were kept sealed, and aromatic herbs were stored alongside dried foods to keep away weevils and moths. Even palace kitchens employed fumigation methods, burning herbs to keep flies and other pests at bay during feasts.
The royal stables were also subject to pest control efforts, since flies and ticks could weaken prized horses and camels. Historians still debate how effective these ancient pest control methods truly were, given the absence of modern chemicals.
However, many believe that the combination of hygiene practices, fumigation, and social customs helped keep parasite infestations manageable, reducing the spread of disease. The use of natural repellents and physical removal is an approach echoed by many traditional cultures worldwide, showing a timeless battle between humans and their tiny foes. You observe a healer preparing a salve made from crushed garlic, onion and sesame oil, ingredients believed to soothe irritated skin and repel biting insects. This salve is carefully applied to the necks and wrists of travelers before they set off on long journeys, a practical measure to prevent uncomfortable and sometimes dangerous bites. The healer laughs as she recalls a story of a merchant who refused to use the salve and ended up with a dozen itchy red bumps, much to the amusement of his companions. Fringe tidbit: there are tales of ritual dances performed during certain times of the year, meant to chase away the lice spirits. These dances involved singing, rhythmic stamping, and the waving of bundles of herbs. Participants believed that these ceremonies kept not only their bodies clean, but also maintained spiritual protection against invisible pests. Whether these rituals had any real effect on lice populations is unknown, but they highlight the cultural importance placed on cleanliness and health. As the night deepens, you notice families inspecting each other's hair by candlelight, a shared chore wrapped in care and sometimes gentle teasing. Children squirm but cooperate, knowing that this communal vigilance protects everyone. The sound of laughter and whispered jokes turns what could be a tedious task into a bonding ritual, a reminder that hygiene was as much about community as it was about individual well-being. You leave the humble home, the scent of burning herbs lingering in your nose, and reflect on the daily battles waged against the smallest of enemies. In Persia, cleanliness was a constant effort, requiring vigilance, creativity, and a healthy dose of humor. This unending fight against pests reveals a society deeply committed to health and comfort, long before the advent of modern insecticides. Walking back to the city centre, you carry with you the quiet knowledge that hygiene was never just a personal matter in Persia. It was woven into the very fabric of life, spanning homes, markets, temples, and palaces alike. The battles against the smallest foes were fought with herbs and hope, with laughter and ritual, and with a stubborn determination to keep both body and soul as pure as the mountain waters that sustained them. The city's early evening hymn draws you toward a quieter neighborhood where Persian women gather for their daily rituals of care, bathing, and beauty. A world often hidden behind lattice windows and veils, but vital to the pulse of the empire. Here, hygiene blends with resilience and social ritual, forming a delicate dance of tradition, discretion, and sisterhood. You follow the soft murmur of voices and the scent of herbs, slipping through a courtyard where women prepare for their evening bath. Mainstream historical fact: Persian women's hygiene practices were as sophisticated as those of men, but often carried unique social and ritual significance. Bathing was an essential part of daily life, especially before religious observances or festivals, and took place either in public bathhouses or private facilities within the home. Women used a variety of natural soaps made from olive oil, animal fats, and fragrant herbs, combined with scrubbing mitts called kesa to exfoliate skin. Hair care involved elaborate oiling and braiding rituals, often conducted by younger female relatives or trusted servants. You watch as a mother guides her daughter through the process of washing hair with a fragrant paste made of crushed rose petals and egg whites, believed to promote shine and strength. The girl giggles as water drips from her tangled braids, while an older woman tends to the fire heating the bath water. There's a rhythm to their movement, soothing, deliberate, and steeped in generations of wisdom. The air is thick with the scent of lavender, myrrh, and sandalwood, a fragrant cloud that seems to shield the women from the harshness of the outside world. Quirky tidbit: some women took pride in the length and health of their eyelashes and brows, using mixtures of castor oil and crushed herbs to encourage growth. There's a charming tradition of gifting scented pomades, and embroidered cloth bags filled with beauty herbs during weddings or festivals, small tokens that spoke of care and hope for the future. And for those wanting to make a bold statement, henna was applied not just to hands and feet, but also subtly in hair to add a tint of auburn, a sign of youth and vitality. Privacy was paramount in these rituals, and women's bathhouses often had separate hours or entirely different facilities from men's. Within these spaces, women could speak freely, share stories, and exchange advice on everything from herbal remedies to child rearing. The bathhouse was a social hub as much as a place of cleanliness, a sanctuary where friendships were forged and secrets safely shared. Historians still debate the extent to which Persian women's hygiene practices influenced or were influenced by neighboring cultures. While many elements were shared across the region, Persia's emphasis on ritual purity and the use of fragrant oils set it apart. Some sources suggest that Persian women's beauty rituals were among the earliest to incorporate both medicinal and cosmetic uses of natural ingredients, a tradition that resonates in modern Middle Eastern practices. You are invited to watch a bathing ceremony, where young brides are gently washed by their mothers-in-law in a ritual symbolizing purity, fertility, and the welcoming into a new family. The process is gentle, but exacting, each movement designed to cleanse not only the body, but also the spirit. Aromatic oils are massaged into the skin, and the bride's hair is braided with strands of jasmine and saffron, carrying blessings of health and happiness. Fringe tidbit: some tales speak of secret herbal baths prepared from rare flowers that bloom only at night, said to grant beauty and protection from envy. These baths were sometimes accompanied by whispered chants or lullabies, believed to infuse the water with magic. While such stories might stretch the truth, they highlight the deep connection between nature, ritual, and the feminine in Persian culture. As dusk settles, you hear the laughter of women emerging from the bathhouse, their skin glowing and faces radiant. They wrap themselves in soft linens and exchange gifts of scented oils and embroidered scarves. The evening promises rest, reflection, and the comfort of community. You leave with a sense of admiration for the blend of practicality and poetry in Persian women's hygiene rituals, a testament to a culture that honored care, connection, and the quiet power of daily self-respect. As the night wraps the city in its gentle embrace, you carry with you the enduring lesson that cleanliness is not just a chore, but an act of love toward oneself, toward others, and toward the world. The evening settles softly over the city, and as the streets begin to quiet, you find yourself drawn to the gentle rhythms of care that define the lives of the young and the old in ancient Persia. Hygiene, realize, is not just a solitary act, but a communal ritual, one where children learn, elders teach, and families weave bonds through shared routines of cleanliness and compassion. Mainstream historical fact: in Persian households, attention to hygiene extended to all ages. Children were introduced early to washing rituals, often with playful encouragement and gentle instruction. Elders were cared for with the utmost respect, their hygiene needs met by devoted family members or attendants. Warm baths, herbal massages, and scented oils were common, reflecting a cultural belief that cleanliness supported both physical health and spiritual well-being throughout life stages. You enter a family home where a grandmother gently bathes her granddaughter in a shallow basin filled with warm water infused with rose petals and lavender. The child giggles as the water splashes, her small hands reaching for the handfuls of fragrant herbs. Nearby, an elderly man is assisted by his daughter as he washes his hands and face, the ritual slow and reverent, symbolizing both care and the passage of time. Quirky tidbit: some Persian families had traditions involving the sharing of bathwater, a practice where the water used to bathe the eldest was then used for younger members, symbolizing the passing of strength and protection. Children often wore tiny linen caps, soaked in scented oils during sleep, thought to guard them from night terrors and promote healthy hair growth. There are also stories of playful cleanliness contests among siblings, turning scrubbing and grooming into games to encourage good habits. As you watch, you notice how communal hygiene was a teaching moment. Mothers and grandmothers passed down knowledge of which herbs soothed skin irritations, how to comb tangled hair without pain, and the correct way to prepare cleansing pastes from natural ingredients. This oral tradition ensured that practical wisdom lived on through generations, woven into daily life as surely as bread and fire. Historians still argue about how much formal medical knowledge was shared within families versus taught by professional healers. While specialized hakims and midwives played essential roles, much of the routine care like bathing, hair care and wound cleaning was learned at home, blending affection with instruction. You are invited to join a circle of women and children preparing for a communal bath. The atmosphere is warm and lively, filled with laughter and soft songs. The women speak of the importance of hygiene not just for health, but for social harmony, cleanliness seen as a gift to one's community, a way to show respect and foster trust. Fringe tidbit, there are legends of bathhouse angels, spirits believed to watch over the vulnerable, children, elders and the sick, ensuring their safety and comfort during bathing rituals. Some families kept small amulets or charms near bathing areas, thought to invite these benevolent guardians. While these beliefs may seem fanciful, they reveal the profound care and sacredness attached to these intimate moments. As night deepens, the city's quiet hum is punctuated by the soft sounds of families finishing their nightly rituals, water pouring, cloths rustling, whispered prayers. In this peaceful tapestry of care, hygiene becomes a language of love and belonging, connecting young and old, past and present. You leave the home with a renewed sense of the power of simple acts, the warm wash, the gentle brush, the shared laughter to sustain life and community. The Persian embrace of cleanliness is not cold or clinical, but deeply human, a practice of kindness, respect, and enduring connection. As you step into the starlit street, you carry the warmth of those moments with you, a reminder that hygiene is never just about the body, but about the heart and the hands that care for it. As you stroll through the winding streets, the lively energy of festival preparations fills the air. Persian festivals were dazzling affairs, where music, dance, and sumptuous feasts came together in a celebration of life, nature, and the divine. But beneath the glitter and gaiety lay a sophisticated understanding of hygiene, a vital if often overlooked part of these grand occasions. After all, when you're sharing tables with hundreds of guests, cleanliness isn't just good manners, it's a matter of survival. Mainstream historical fact, major Persian festivals, such as Nowruz, the New Year celebration, were accompanied by extensive bathing and cleansing rituals. Participants would purify themselves with scented oils and ritual baths before attending feasts, ensuring that both body and spirit were prepared for the sacred festivities. The feasting halls were cleaned meticulously beforehand, and attendants worked tirelessly to maintain hygiene throughout the event, including the management of food preparation, waste disposal, and personal cleanliness among guests. You find yourself in the midst of a bustling kitchen, where cooks chop herbs and roast meats over open fires. The air is thick with the scent of saffron, cumin, and grilled lamb, mixed with fresh mint and rosewater. You observe how fruits and vegetables are washed in large basins, sometimes with the addition of crushed herbs believed to purify and preserve. Servers rinse their hands frequently and wipe tables with cloths soaked in lemon and vinegar. Simple yet effective disinfectants. Quirky tidbit. At some festivals there was a tradition of handing out cleansing cloths, scented with herbs like basil and thyme, which guests would use to wipe their hands before eating. These cloths often doubled as keepsakes, embroidered with symbols of luck and prosperity. There's also a curious custom of sprinkling crushed rose petals on the floor of the banquet hall, both to freshen the air and to remind guests of the fleeting beauty of life. A fragrant way to encourage mindfulness even amidst indulgence. You notice a group of dancers preparing for a performance, their bodies freshly anointed with fragrant oils and powdered with a mixture of sandalwood and crushed rose petals to prevent sweat from spoiling their costumes. The choreographer reminds them to keep their hair tied back and their feet clean, not only for aesthetics but to avoid slipping on the smooth palace floors. Hygiene here is woven into artistry, an unspoken rule of grace and respect. Historians still debate the extent to which Persian festival hygiene influenced broader public health. Some argue that these celebrations helped limit the spread of disease by encouraging rigorous cleansing and food safety practices, while others suggest the sheer scale of gatherings made outbreaks inevitable. Regardless, the emphasis on purity and cleanliness during festivals reflects a deep cultural understanding of health's social dimension. You're invited to join a feast where guests recline on cushions around low tables piled high with dishes. Each diner is provided with a small basin of water scented with lemon and mint for hand washing before and after meals. The hosts emphasize the importance of these rituals, not only for cleanliness but as an expression of hospitality and care. You sip a cool pomegranate drink and watch as guests dip their fingers into shared bowls, carefully avoiding cross-contamination with graceful hand gestures learned from childhood.
Fringe tidbit. Some festival guests carried small pocket bowls filled with scented water and herbs, allowing them to discreetly wash their hands throughout the event.
Others wore finger covers, embroidered with gold thread, a fashion statement and a practical tool to keep food from sticking to fingers. There are even anecdotes of festival attendees using perfumed sponges between courses to refresh their faces and hands, much like the makeup wipes of today. As the night deepens, musicians play softly while guests share stories and laughter, their bodies warmed by the dance of firelight and camaraderie. The final act of the festival is often a collective washing ceremony, where participants cleanse themselves in communal pools or rivers, symbolically washing away the old year's impurities and welcoming renewal. You leave the festival grounds with a sense of wonder at how hygiene, hospitality, and celebration intertwined in ancient Persia. Cleanliness was never an afterthought, but a core element of social harmony and spiritual renewal, an integral part of the human experience that transcended time. Walking home beneath the stars, you carry with you the fragrant memory of rose water and the vibrant pulse of community, a reminder that the joy of living and the care for one another are forever linked in the dance of cleanliness and connection. As the first light of dawn filters over the rugged terrain beyond the city walls, you find yourself embarking on a very different journey, one of motion, resilience, and resourcefulness. The ancient Persian Empire was vast, its roads stretching thousands of miles, connecting desert oases, bustling cities, and remote mountain villages. Along these arteries travelled merchants, messengers, and soldiers, each carrying with them not only goods and news, but also the need to stay clean and healthy on the move. Hygiene on the road was a challenge, yet the Persians developed clever ways to keep themselves as fresh as possible while facing dust storms, long marches, and scarce water. Mainstream historical fact. The Royal Road, one of the greatest achievements of the Persian Empire, allowed for rapid movement of troops and communication. Along this road, way stations called karazans provided travellers with shelter, water, and sometimes basic bathing facilities. Soldiers carried personal grooming kits, including combs, scrapers, and scented oils, while merchants packed small containers of soap and herbal sachets. Maintaining cleanliness on these journeys was essential to prevent disease and maintain morale, particularly for soldiers who often marched for days in harsh conditions. You join a group of soldiers preparing for their daily wash at a roadside spring. Buckets are filled with cold water, and the soldiers take turns scrubbing dusty hands, faces, and feet with coarse cloths dipped in a mixture of ashes and crushed herbs. A young warrior offers you a small vial of rose-scented oil, a precious gift meant to mask the smell of sweat and dust. The camaraderie is palpable, and even the grimmest soldier can't help but smile as he accepts the token.
Quirky tidbit. Travellers often carried sprigs of mint or dried lavender tucked into their turbans or cloaks, both for fragrance and to ward off insects.
Some soldiers wore tightly wrapped headbands soaked in vinegar or lemon juice, believing it kept away lice and headaches caused by the relentless sun. There are amusing tales of generals who insisted on bathing in cold mountain streams daily, much to the chagrin of their officers, who called it the madness of cleanliness, but secretly admired his discipline. The caravans themselves were hubs of hygiene and rest. Courtyards featured stone basins for washing, and attendants offered herbal infusions for weary travellers. Stables were regularly cleaned, and animals were brushed to prevent the spread of pests. Guests were expected to bathe before meals, using soap and water brought from nearby springs or wells. These stops were as much about social ritual as physical care, places where stories were exchanged, and alliances forged under the shadow of ancient walls. Historians still debate how accessible these facilities were to ordinary travellers. While royalty and soldiers enjoyed well-maintained caravanserais, merchants and pilgrims might have relied on more rudimentary accommodations, caves, tents, or the open desert. However, the emphasis on cleanliness and order at these way stations set a standard that influenced travel hygiene for centuries. You watch as a merchant carefully wraps his fine linens around freshly laundered robes, preparing for the next leg of his journey. He shares a tale of a notorious bandit who was outwitted by travellers carrying scented oils, whose clean smell betrayed their presence long before the bandit's spies could detect them. The blend of hygiene and strategy adds a touch of intrigue to the dusty road. Fringe tidbit. Some travellers carried small sealed pots containing a mixture of crushed frankincense and powdered myrrh, used to purify the air in their tents and ward off evil winds. There's a charming story of a caravan leader who was so devoted to hygiene that he had his servants prepare miniature baths for his prized horse, insisting that cleanliness was key to strength and speed. As the sun climbs higher and shadows shorten, you join the march, feeling the dust settle on your skin, but also a sense of pride in the perseverance of those who kept clean despite the hardships. Hygiene on the move was a form of resilience, a daily affirmation that no matter how far from home, the body and spirit must be cared for. You leave the dusty road with a newfound respect for the travelling Persians, whose clever customs and relentless commitment to cleanliness kept the empire's heart beating across vast and challenging landscapes. In their footsteps, you carry the understanding that hygiene is not just a luxury of the settle, but a necessity of the journey. Beyond the heart of the Persian Empire, the borders were a tapestry of diverse peoples, each with their own customs and ways of life. As you journey into these frontier regions, you discover a fascinating mosaic of hygiene practices, some deeply influenced by Persian traditions, others strikingly distinct. Here, the empire's fringes reveal how cultural diversity shaped attitudes toward cleanliness, purity, and social ritual, offering a glimpse into the empire's broader complexity. Mainstream historical fact. The Persian Empire was famously multicultural, encompassing Medes, Elamites, Babylonians, and many others, each bringing unique hygiene customs. Archaeological evidence shows that while the Persian core emphasized public bathhouses and ritual purity, border regions often had communal washing areas, different bathing schedules, and alternative cleansing agents, sometimes reflecting local climates, religions, or social structures. This diversity enriched the empire's approach to hygiene as ideas were exchanged, adapted, or resisted. You arrive in a Median village nestled among rolling hills, where stone wells and flowing streams serve as lifelines. Women gather at the river's edge, washing clothes and themselves with soap made from local herbs, such as chamomile and wild thyme. Their songs carry across the water, weaving tradition and daily labour into a seamless whole. You notice that the men prefer dry baths, rubbing themselves with fine sand and fragrant oils to conserve water, a practical adaptation to the region's climate. Quirky tidbit: among the Elamites, hair removal rituals took on a symbolic significance. Before marriages or religious ceremonies, individuals would shave specific parts of their bodies, not just for cleanliness, but as a rite of passage. Yes, some communities believed that certain hair patterns could attract good fortune or ward off evil spirits. There's even a tale of a young man who refused to shave a patch of his beard, claiming it protected him from misfortune, causing much amusement among his peers. Travelling further, you find yourself among the nomadic tribes of the eastern deserts, where water is scarce and bathing is a rare, treasured event. Here, hygiene relies heavily on dry cleaning methods, rubbing with clay, dusting with fine powders, and the liberal use of fragrant resins to mask odours. The tribespeople value simplicity and practicality, but their customs are no less rich in meaning. Cleanliness is tied to honour and hospitality, with guests receiving fresh cloaks and aromatic cloths upon arrival. Historians still debate how much these frontier customs influenced the Persian heartland. Some scholars argue that the empire's administrative systems encouraged cultural exchange, spreading hygiene practices across regions, while others point to evidence of resistance and preservation of local traditions. The truth likely lies in a dynamic interplay, an ongoing dialogue between unity and diversity. You witness a ceremonial cleansing among a group of Elamite elders, where the community gathers to wash in a sacred spring, accompanied by chants and offerings. The ritual blends physical purification with spiritual renewal, a theme that resonates throughout Persia and its neighbours. Water, fire, and earth are invoked, creating a shared sense of identity and continuity. Fringe tidbit: there are legends of hygiene shamans who used herbs and smoke to heal not just the body, but the environment itself. These figures were believed to command the forces of nature, ensuring clean water, healthy crops, and protection from pests. Their practices, part medicine and part mysticism, were sometimes viewed with suspicion by Orthodox priests, but remained popular among common folk. As you prepare to leave the borders and return to the imperial cities, you reflect on the wealth of hygiene traditions you've encountered, each shaped by environment, belief, and history. This diversity enriched Persia, creating a complex web of practices that supported health, social order, and cultural identity across the vast empire. You walk back beneath the wide sky, carrying the stories of many peoples, each one a vital thread in the grand tapestry of Persian life. The lesson is clear: cleanliness and care are universal, but their expressions are as varied and vibrant as the people who practice them. Night drapes itself gently over the city, and as you settle into a quiet corner, the final notes of your journey through ancient Persian hygiene echo softly in your mind. This is a story of water and wisdom, soap and spirit, a legacy that, despite the passage of millennia, still washes through the veins of modern life. The rituals, inventions, and beliefs of the Persians didn't fade into dust but flowed onward, shaping the way generations understand cleanliness, health, and the sacred balance between body and soul. Mainstream historical fact: Persian hygiene practices influenced neighbouring cultures and through the centuries left a mark on Islamic medicine, medieval European bathing traditions, and even modern approaches to sanitation. The qanats remain marvels of engineering. Rosewater and essential oils are still treasured. The notion that cleanliness is next to godliness finds echoes in religious and cultural teachings worldwide. From the baths of Constantinople to the spas of Venice, Persia's innovations travelled far and wide. You find yourself walking through a peaceful garden at dusk, the air rich with the scent of jasmine and myrrh. A soft breeze stirs the branches, and the gentle sound of water flowing through stone channels soothes your senses. This garden, like many in ancient Persia, was a sanctuary of hygiene and harmony, where water and earth, scent and sound came together in perfect balance. Quirky tidbit: in Persian poetry, cleanliness is often used as a metaphor for purity of heart and clarity of mind. One beloved verse compares a clean soul to water that reflects the stars, a timeless image that reminds us that hygiene is not only about the physical, but also about the spirit's illumination. The poet's words linger, as fragrant and profound as the rose gardens you've wandered. You recall the countless hands that scrubbed, rinsed, and anointed, the baths filled and emptied, the herbs crushed and burned. You remember the laughter of children, the whispered prayers of priests, the determined march of soldiers, and the quiet dignity of elders.
These scenes form a mosaic of life, where hygiene was both necessity and celebration, science and ritual, individual care and communal responsibility. Historians still debate many details of Persian hygiene, from the precise recipes of their soaps to the rituals of purification. But the overarching truth is undeniable. Their culture revered cleanliness as a bridge between the earthly and the divine.
A foundation for health, social order, and spiritual well-being. This reverence shaped not only their own lives, but also the civilizations that followed. As night deepens, you close your eyes and let the final images fade softly. A steaming bathhouse at dawn, fragrant oils gliding over skin, the murmur of water through ancient channels. You carry with you the timeless lesson that cleanliness is more than a routine. It is an expression of respect for oneself, for community, and for the world. In these quiet moments, you feel the pulse of a tradition that connects past and present, reminding you that even in the simplest acts of washing and caring, there lies a profound beauty and enduring grace. Now, as the night grows still, and the city settles into a gentle hush, let your thoughts drift with ease. Imagine the soft touch of water, the delicate scent of blooming jasmine carried on a cool evening breeze. Feel the warmth of clean skin and the comforting rhythm of a practiced ritual, the way ancient Persians, and perhaps you, find peace in these small acts of care. In the quiet, there is healing. The world, vast and complex, narrows to the simple truth that cleanliness nourishes both body and soul. Let this thought soothe you, wrapping around like a soft linen cloak, tender and calm. You are part of a long line of seekers and caregivers, each one washing away the dust of the day, renewing hope and harmony. The past and present mingle in the water's gentle flow, connecting you to a timeless dance of life and purity.
So as you close your eyes, breathe deeply, and listen to the soft hum of the night. Know that you carry within you the enduring legacy of care and cleanliness, a gift as ancient as the mountains, as fresh as the morning dew.
Let your thoughts wander gentle and slow until they find rest. The story will wait for you when dawn comes again. For now, simply be clean, calm, and ready to